My name is Netanyahu, and I have always suspected that God actually made a mistake when dividing fortune. Because of that, I felt the need to correct it a little by taking other people's shares. We all know that behind the polite smiles we wear, there is a little monster shouting, "I want everything, and I want it now." The only difference is one thing. I don't just listen to that monster. I made him the CEO in my head. Do you know what is more addictive than drugs? The feeling of winning. Not just winning a running race or winning a game, but the feeling of victory when you see others lose, be destroyed, and you stand on their ruins holding a trophy. I'm not trying to be that trashy morning motivation speaker. I'm just being honest. Because honesty is cheap, and I'm too rich to pretend to be a good person. I started from zero. Like those stories of poor people becoming rich that you like to watch on YouTube while eating instant noodles. But the difference is, I didn't take the work hard like a horse route. I took the work sly like a snake route. Since childhood, I always felt I was special. I felt the world was just a stage full of extras and I was the only main actor. Other people? They're just props. They're like chairs, tables, or maybe a ladder I can step on to climb up. Arrogance is like a necklace made of carcasses. You might feel flashy wearing it, but the people around you can only hold back their nausea while waiting for you to realize that what you're flaunting is garbage. But back then, I didn't care. I entered a big company with one goal, to be on top. I didn't care who I had to eliminate. There I met Adolf. He was a good person, too good actually. The kind of person who would lend you his umbrella when it rains even though he has asthma. So stupid, right? Adolf was my friend. He helped me adapt, shared data, even gave his brilliant ideas to me because he thought we were a team. That's when my greed started to wake up. I saw Adolf's ideas and I thought, why should such a cool idea have Adolf's name on it? It should be mine. Slowly but surely, I began to manipulate things. I started whispering to the boss that Adolf was often late, that the work was actually finished by me, that he planned to resign and take the company's data. I didn't feel guilty, not at all. In fact, there was a strange ticklish feeling every time I saw Adolf smile at me genuinely. He didn't know that behind him I was sharpening a knife to stab his back. It felt like playing chess with someone who doesn't know that I've already eaten his king. Exciting, funny, and it made me feel powerful. The peak was the promotion to creative director. There was only one seat, and it should have belonged to Adolf based on merit. But I didn't want to lose. I needed that position to feed my ego, which had grown as big as an elephant. I staged a scenario as if Adolf had sold company secrets to a competitor. Without him knowing, I planted fake evidence on his computer. I played the role of the devastated friend when he was interrogated. You should have seen his face when he was dishonorably fired. He wasn't angry. He was just confused. He stared at me, tears welling in his eyes, asking for help. And me? I just patted his shoulder and said, "Be patient, Adolf. The world is harsh." But inside I was shouting with glee. I won. I got a spacious office, a salary of hundreds of millions, and a pride that made me feel untouchable. I was the king of the garbage kingdom I had built myself. But it turned out the mountain peak is very lonely, and the air is thin, making it hard to breathe. After Adolf left, his life was ruined. He couldn't get a job anywhere because I had sullied his reputation. His wife left him, and the last I heard he was severely depressed. Did I care? Of course not. But slowly, that greed began to eat me from within. Because I had grown used to greedily consuming many people, I could no longer trust anyone. Every time a staff member smiled at me, I thought, he wants my position. He's surely planning to bring me down. Every time someone offered a good idea, I immediately wanted to get rid of him before he became a threat. I became paranoid. I checked the office CCTV every hour. I had no friends, only subordinates who were afraid or sycophants waiting for me to slip. This arrogance and greed not only made me feel elevated, but also made me feel distant from humanity. I'm rich, I have everything, but every night I have to take sleeping pills just to silence the voice in my head that says, one day your greed and arrogance will destroy you. I started looking in the mirror and didn't recognize who was in front of me. The eyes were empty, as if there was no soul left. Sometimes I wonder, what's the point of being successful if you always have to look back to make sure no one is carrying a sword? I've won, but it feels like sitting on a pile of corpses. It stinks. And worst of all, I can't stop. I still want more. More money, more power, more validation. This greed has become part of my DNA. It won't be satisfied until I'm truly dead or destroyed. Ironic, isn't it? I destroyed Adolf's life just to sit in a chair that now feels like a burning coal. I have everything I wanted, but I've lost the most valuable thing: peace of mind. I became arrogant because I thought I was better than others, when in fact I was lower because I had no moral boundaries. Now I stand on the balcony of my luxury apartment watching the small people down below. I hate them because they look happy despite having nothing. And I hate myself because even though I have everything, I'm just trash wrapped in a branded suit. This sickness of mine has locked me in a soundproof room, where only my voice praises myself while crying. Last week, a new intern arrived. His name is Stalin. Young, neat, and with a glint in his eyes that makes me want to vomit. Why? Because I see myself there. He has the same kind of smile I used to wear the first time I shook Adolf's hand. A smile that says, I'm here to learn. But his eyes say, I'm here to eat you alive. Funny, right? Karma, it turns out, is not about suddenly falling into poverty or catching a strange disease. Karma is when you have to sit in a room with a younger, hungrier, less burdened version of yourself. I invited him to lunch at a restaurant whose price is equivalent to someone's motorcycle installment. I showed off. I showed him my watch. I told him about my achievements. I demonstrated how high my position was. I wanted him to feel small. I wanted him to know that I was the top predator here. But do you know what he did? He just nodded politely, listened to every story of mine seriously, and he began asking about the weaknesses of the system at the office. That's when I realized he wasn't admiring me. He was mapping the territory. He was looking for a gap where he could place his foot so he could push me down. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I busied myself rifling through the safe, making sure all documents about my greed were still there. I went insane. I began thinking about firing him the next morning for no clear reason. But if I did that, the board of directors would be suspicious. I'm cornered. I was arrogant because I thought I was the smartest, but now I'm afraid of a 22-year-old who still can't tie a tie properly. This arrogance is really funny. It makes me feel like God, but in reality I'm just a clown worshiping myself. I've built a very tall tower, but I forgot to make an exit door. Now I can only wait inside, holding this rusty golden trophy, waiting for the other Stalins to come with a big hammer to tear everything down. It turns out being evil is extraordinarily exhausting. You don't only have to be clever at devouring others. You also have to be smarter at devouring yourself so you don't die of disgust. Now be honest with yourself. How often do you feel pleased when you see your friend fail? Or perhaps, are you also preparing a plan to correct someone else's shirt today? Try writing it in the comments section, but use a fake account just to be safe.